Welcome to this course on how to set up and implement a custom GPT for your business. My name is Alex Kinedinik and I'll be your instructor. In this video, I'll briefly tell you what to expect from the course and we'll start right away. Well, the course is made to be 100% practical, meaning that it's a relatively short course. It's a complete walkthrough of what is a custom GPT, why do you need it? Hint, it's because the default GPT doesn't know much about the internal workings of your company, so you want to make a private GPT that you can train on the internal workings of your company so that it can help your employees. Once you know that, I'll show you exactly how to set it up, how to implement it, and then how to start getting adoption and testing within your organization so that everyone ultimately uses it, but not only uses it, succeeds with it, meaning improves their productivity, because then everyone gets their own AI assistant to make everyone's work better, more work, and higher quality work. So that's the course. Welcome, and let's begin. In this video, let's discuss what exactly is a custom GPT, because it's such a mysterious and cool sounding idea, but what is it really? Let's get all the misconceptions out of the way. First, a definition. A custom GPT is a personalized version of a chat GPT that we all know, the default one, but personalized. It might be personalized for your personal brand, or it might be personalized for your internal company needs, which is the common use case it's used for. Because think about it, the general default chat GPT that we all are accustomed to using should generally not know much about your company's internal operations, documents. They're private, but the employees of your company and other trusted individuals must be able to access those documents and should have the privilege to use AI and the power of ChatGPT to summarize, to write, to do a whole bunch of things that they usually do with ChatGPT, but for the information and private knowledge that belongs to your company. That's what it largely means for it to be custom and personalized. So imagine if it was the default ChatGPT, but was expert about exactly what you were doing and knowledgeable about all the specifics inside your company that usually externally no one knows. And you can train the custom GPT on your company's knowledge and provide access to select individuals. For example, your customer service staff and your sales staff should be able to access various documents and documentation so that they can then relay certain things to clients. Maybe they'll also use the custom GPT not only to reference documents, but to create better responses that reference your company's knowledge base, but the responses would go externally. And there are many, many additional use cases for this. So that's the definition. And additionally, it's really helpful to gain a deeper understanding of what a custom GPT is for and what it can do by understanding what it cannot do. So let's say that you wanted to create a customer service widget that lives on the bottom right of your website and just kind of pops up for users. That widget has no access to your custom GPT. So you cannot create software, you cannot create widgets with a custom GPT because the custom GPT just cannot be referenced by any external custom software. If you are creating any kind of external software, what you instead want to do is use the ChatGPT API. The API is made for external calls by software. So if you're building applications or software, you need to use the API. But if you're building an internal GPT or internal knowledge base, you use a custom GPT. And with that in mind, let's talk about what are the top and most common use cases for custom GPT. It's great as an internal knowledge base that can be not only referenced, but also summarized, used to compose new documents with, and become the assistant of every one of your employees at your company. For example, somebody might need internal brainstorming or prototyping of some documents or some software, or has ideas. The first place they can go is your custom GPT, because your custom GPT is like, every company has this employee who's been there for 20 years, knows everything, and everybody goes to that person. That's the custom GPT without bothering that person. And that person is not always available, but a custom GPT is always available. So it's an assistant and a brainstorming partner and a handler of tasks for every single one of your employees, making every single one of your employees incredibly more productive. Also, a custom GPT is great for internal training, employee onboarding, sales, customer support, and can be used as reference by just about all teams. So anybody who's ever confused, needs help, yeah, they can ask a person, but if that person's not available or you're asking like 20 times, okay, maybe ask custom GPT, which, by the way, even without being mentioned, makes it really clear that it's an incredibly money-saving tool, because now all your most senior employees are no longer bothered by all the junior employees asking them silly questions or basic questions, and every single one of your employees becomes more productive, meaning that as a company with the same staff, now you can accomplish way more. So not only your costs go down, every employee becomes more productive. This is great if you're looking for ways for, instead of ChatGPT and AI causing people to lose jobs, well, now everyone can retain their jobs and become way more productive and make the company achieve more and win long term. This is one of the strongest arguments for every company creating an internal custom GPT. Okay, sounds good, right? So you're like, oh, okay, how do I use it? How do I get it? We'll talk about that shortly, but when you can access it by going through chat.openai.com and going through the steps of actually creating a custom GPT, which we'll go through shortly, and then giving access to employees, possibly clients, and possibly other trusted individuals. And just bearing in mind that this custom GPT will not, like I mentioned earlier, be accessible by external applications. It's for internal use. And again, it's for internal use because, to reiterate, why do you need it? Because the default ChatGPT knows next to nothing about the internal inner workings of your company. It might guess, but that's not what you want. For your employees, you want the custom GPT to have the latest information about everything important in your company, so that the custom GPT can be way more helpful as an assistant than the default GPT, because the custom GPT will still be as good as the default GPT, but also contain knowledge about your company's inner workings and internal knowledge, which the default ChatGPT does not know. And you can feed so many things into your custom GPT, like company policies, procedures, finances, plans, project documents, even code, internal policies for customer support and service, discount structures, bylaws. Everything that is a piece of knowledge in your company can go into a custom GPT. So hopefully that gets you excited about all the great possibilities that a custom GPT opens up. And with that in mind, in the next video, let's begin creating your custom GPT. Now let's begin taking our first steps to create our own custom GPT. The URL for that is chatgpt.com/GPTs. To sign up, you must be a ChatGPT Plus subscriber, which is the ChatGPT basic plan. It's around $20 a month. I already have that, so it's easy for me to sign up. So I'll say sign up for free. I'll connect with Google. Once you're logged in, you have two options. You can browse the existing GPTs for whatever your needs might be, like Scholar GPT or Write For Me, or maybe Productivity GPT, to see what kind of productivity help you can get. Like here's an AI video maker. I haven't tried it. I don't know if it's good, but maybe. Generate realistic images. Okay. But here, we wanted to create a custom one for us. So we're going to go on the top right and press the plus create button. After that, you'll see two options, create and configure. Configure is when you enter everything form field by form field, like description of it, instructions, conversation starters, knowledge, and this is where you upload your files, what are the capabilities, etc. So this is when you do things manually on your own. But create is when you use more of a vibe coding style, where you just tell it, hey, this is what I want, build it. And obviously, you can just tell it what you want to do. But for our purposes, let's use the manual creation so that we can know exactly what we want and we can be more specific about what we want and have a little more control. So let's do that in the next video. Now let me walk you through how to fill out the configure form. And you'll see that I already pre-filled the values in the fields. So let's go through it together and I'll explain how you should fill out each one of them. For the name, you should name it something descriptive. Usually people add a GPT at the end and before the GPT, something that they can recognize that this will help them with. In my case, Problemio is my brand. This is the website under which I do my business, like my books, my coaching, my courses. So in this particular example, we're going to be building a custom GPT that would help my staff sell and support my clients. For example, now during sales, a lot of times clients negotiate with me. And if I want my staff to be able to take over the negotiation process, I have to let them know like what's the lowest they can go, what discounts can they allow, how much not to discount, what to say in every kind of instance, things like that. And then similarly with support, because as soon as people buy, they need support. So my staff should also be able to handle support. And that's how you come up with your name. Problemio Sales and Support GPT. You might choose a shorter one, just your brand and GPT, but this is essentially the gist. Under description, it's very basic. It says, helps the freelancers and employees negotiate, sell, and provide support for online courses from Problemio.com. Basic. The instructions for the custom GPT: personality, patient, professional, helpful, knowledge, discounting and negotiation tactics and limits, let's say price limits, and then also common support issues. Conversation starters. Now the conversation starters section. This is confusing. Like, why do you need conversation starters? This feels like in-person awkward networking. Like, we need an icebreaker because we're adults but don't know how to talk to each other. This feels a little bit like that. But this is really for beginner custom GPT users of yours to know what kind of things that the custom GPT can help them with. So the custom GPT can say, need sales assistance or need support assistance or whatever, in your case, you're going to train your custom GPT to do. Then knowledge files. Here you would upload all the files that you have internally for all the new employee instructions, onboarding files, any project documentation, product documentation. You would put it here first and foremost, and you can always upload here as you see fit. Like if the custom GPT still doesn't know things, you can later add more documents. For the recommended model, generally speaking, GPT-4o is pretty good, but you might also just let users use whichever model they prefer. Now, under capabilities, you might uncheck some, like for example, code interpreter. Well, if you know that your employees won't be dealing with code, don't need it. If your employees won't deal with image generation, you might not have Canvas, you might not have image generation, but web search is necessary. And then you'll proceed to the next step. And so you'll click on create new action. And so just for this video, not to run too long, let's fill out this part of the process in the next video. So on the second part of the form, you'll see a prompt for add actions. So let me explain to you what these custom actions are so that you can know whether this is useful for you. As you can see here, it says, let your GPT retrieve information or take actions outside of ChatGPT. This means that you can enable your custom GPT to go and make calls to external services, maybe some API calls that would be from your company or a third-party company to use some information. For example, let's say you are running a stock trading company and you have to know the exact stock price at every moment. So if your customers ask, hey, why did the stock price drop or why did it go up so much? So that you have a reasonable answer and your information is not outdated. So that's one use case for which you really would want to have a custom action. In case you would want it, you'd have to provide a way to authenticate and enter your OpenAPI schema or import from a URL, basically little code snippets or instructions for how to get that information or make calls. You can use JSON, YAML, or other methods. Now, in most cases, when you're just setting up your custom GPT, you probably haven't thought of what are external parts of information that I need? Because again, many custom GPTs have to do with internal information about your company. So this is optional and skippable. And if you skip it and in the future decide, oh, I do need some information, you can easily come here and add it when you edit your custom GPT. So in our case, we're going to go back to the drafts because we're not going to create it here because in many cases, this is not applicable and overly complicated in the beginning. So we're going to click back and you'll come to a screen that looks like this with all your options like create a new GPT or some drafts you've made. So we're going to actually edit our existing draft. Click on configure because we're configuring one. And we have to make sure that we have a photo. We need any kind of a photo just so it's recognizable. You can use a placeholder, it's okay. I have one of me somewhere that looks cool. Not that one. Maybe something like this. If you can't see it, it says I teach with Udemy on the thing I'm holding. And whenever you're ready, you click on create, choose the accessibility option like only for me, anyone with a link, or the GPT store. For now, our GPT is nowhere near ready for selling and use by other people. So we'll just use the basic options like only me or anyone with a link, which is also the same thing as only me. So anyone with the link is good, and we'll click on save. Then you'll get the link to your custom GPT. You can view your GPT. Naturally, if you're doing this for your own brand, you'll change the picture to your own brand. And through this URL, any person inside your company or somebody with this URL can ask it specific things about the nuances of your company. Like, how do you handle this support situation? How do you handle that sales situation? So essentially, your custom GPT will be set up. And obviously, the next step will be to perfect it. So you'll have to test it for common questions that you'll get or common scenarios and see whether this GPT actually is helpful enough so that you can leave your employees with it and take a step back, knowing that it can support your employees enough. And if it cannot, then you have to feed it more specific documents and information until it's smart enough to be able to handle all the scenarios that come up in your company. Once you've set up your custom ChatGPT, the next thing you want to think about is how do you roll this out at work? So let me give you an approximate schedule, maybe a 30 to 90 day rollout process, depending on how big your company might be, how much bureaucracy you have to deal with, how many people are involved. If you have a small business, obviously it will be a shorter rollout. If you have a bigger business, obviously a longer rollout. So the first 30 days, you're doing your pilot. You're just inviting only a few hand-picked users, and you're experimenting with what you can gain in terms of productivity. What kind of baseline productivity metrics can you create and monitor? Around the 60-day mark, you've tested, you've perfected a lot of the features it's working, so you roll it out to a bigger team for more testing and hence more feedback. You might publish a guide for how to use this, especially for how to use this for common tasks. Because remember, some people might have never used AI at work before, so you want to make sure there's a guide and appropriate documentation. And around the 90-day mark, you would look to finish out your testing, do a full rollout so that everyone in your company who's intended to use your custom GPT gets it. You want to set and finalize your productivity metrics and KPIs. And with that, your costs and productivity gains that you would expect will be set so you can monitor, is this cost efficient in the end? And if it is, how much? And again, this is a 90-day schedule, but if you have a smaller team, this can be condensed quite a bit. Now, in the very beginning, where do you start? You start by identifying the common use cases that you encounter with your business. In order to select the common use cases, you want to identify the teams that are going to be using the custom GPT. And in those teams, identify the common and repetitive jobs they regularly have to do. And you break those common and repetitive jobs that each team has to do. Maybe you find between 10 and 20 weekly tasks per team. Ideally, you might find less, you might find more. It depends on the business, obviously. After that, you write user stories. So here are some examples. Let's say if you're a salesperson, you might need a one-page prospect brief so that the outreach is personalized and fast. If you're a customer support agent, you might need top 3 answers from the knowledge base drafted so that the customer service agent can respond quicker and more accurately. If you're a content writer or a marketer, maybe you need the custom GPT to create a first draft from an initial brief from your boss. So obviously it can get published faster. So those are very, very common user stories for your staff, for your employees, they have to deal with these tasks again and again and again and again, always. So why not look into the workflow of how they do them and find spots where they can improve their workflow? And to help you, you want to analyze each repetitive task. For example, you might score each task on how long each task usually takes now, the task priority, and the productivity gain if AI optimization with it is successful. And of course, there's risk. Like, what if the AI gives you wrong answers, which is rare, but sometimes possible? What is the risk of that? And once you count up the approximate score, you can prioritize the highest scoring tasks to be tested first. Once you prioritize your tasks and you identify the teams, you identified the user stories, you know what they need to do, then you want to identify what's called a task shape. A task shape might be create a summary for long emails or long documents or long text, or extract some information or classify. For example, if you're in customer support and you get a long email, out of that long email, instead of taking 5 or 10 minutes to read it, how about extract the important points and then classify, like, is this a product problem? Is this an issue with them just not understanding how to use the product? Like, what is the issue? Who can solve it best? And obviously you can see that if you get a long email, it might take the customer service agent 5 or 10 minutes to read it, think about it, be confused, think about it again, read it again, or they can just give it to ChatGPT and ChatGPT can solve this in 30 seconds, all while not tiring the human customer service agent. And of course, other task shapes have to do with creation of content and material, so drafting, proofreading, or answering. So once you have all of this structure, the common tasks that are repetitive, the user stories for every department at work, your prioritization of which tasks are important, and the different task shapes, then you can begin with your small initial team testing your custom GPT to see whether it's helpful, how much it's helpful, and where it's falling a little short, so that you can optimize your teaching of the custom GPT so that as you test, it becomes better at handling those repetitive tasks. So in essence, on day 1 or 2, your custom GPT will be okay, but by day 30 of your initial test, your custom GPT should be incredibly accurate because you've worked through when it hallucinates, when it's just outright wrong, when it misunderstands the task, when your prompt is off. And after that, your custom GPT will be quite accurate in how it understands what to do and its performance, and hence the productivity gains will be more significant so that you can begin rolling it out to a bigger set of testers within your company. Now let's talk about how to set the custom GPT KPI, which stands for Key Performance Indicators, for your company, because you don't want to ballpark like, yeah, it's helpful, or yeah, kind of helpful, or super helpful. That's not a professional description. You can't tell your boss, this thing is super helpful, so we should invest a super big amount of money into administering this thing and rolling it out, right? That doesn't sound like something you could ever say. Imagine you talk to your boss like, this is kind of helpful, and your boss comes back with like a good burn and be like, well, you are then kind of employed. How good is that answer? Right away, you'll want it precise. Okay, then of course you learn your lesson, and after that, be very precise. You're supposed to provide metrics. On average, for every employee, we're able to shave off 2 hours of work time per week, or at least some metric like that, which translate to X amount of dollars saved. So across the company, we are saving this amount of money. We can either reduce workforce or reallocate that time to take on new projects. And by the way, here are the costs to roll this out, test, administer. Obviously, somebody has to administer, like either you are going to hire an external company to manage your custom GPT, or somebody on the team is going to have to administer it and do debugging and answer questions and be in charge of that project. So you're going to have a cost either way. And what you're going to want to tell the management team is, all right, here's exactly how much time we're saving, hence how much money we're saving. Here's what we can do with that saved time. We have this and this opportunity. We can reallocate those hours to more interesting, more productive projects, more profitable projects perhaps. And here are the costs. Now that's professional, okay? That's why you want to have the KPIs for this, because it might be apparent and obvious. Yeah, it's going to save time. It's AI, like, of course, right? But that's not something you can say. Even though that's something you think, it's not what you can say. So how do we do this? We want to identify the common tasks that we have. Obviously, there are, things like summarizing, drafting, answering questions or emails, extracting data, classifying requests, whatever they are. And then as you're using the AI, you want to track your task success rate, percentage of output that the user accepts without major edits. It might be 80%. That's one KPI because you want to perfect your custom GPT over time so that it performs better and better and more accurately. And other KPIs that you want to track are time you save in total time, the volume of tasks that were helped, and of course, you can ultimately add subjective user satisfaction. Like if your employees hate this, figure out why, what's wrong. Is the AI not trained well enough? It's making too many errors, or is it clunky to use, or are they just worried that it's going to take over their jobs? Because sometimes that's a concern, but that's not related to the KPIs, obviously. And with the time saved, what you can also do is drill down on the kind of job. How much time is it saving the sales team, the customer support team? Because obviously the costs of running those teams are slightly different. And then once you measure for how many tasks the custom GPTs invoked or involved, what's the success rate of those tasks, how much total time was saved, with that, how much money was saved, then you're able to present the case to the management team. Hey, here's how profitable this is. Here's how much resources this saves us. Here's how we can allocate those resources. Now that's professional, and that's why you want to track and identify your KPIs for using your custom GPT so that you can measure its effectiveness. And obviously, the KPIs I gave you are generic ones, but you may have some unique ones that are unique because of the uniqueness of your business. It's possible that your tasks require slightly different KPIs, so you want to adjust this, but these are general KPIs that you definitely want to track, at least these. Now, just a few words about getting adoption within your organization and getting support, because some people love AI, but AI can be a polarizing topic for some because some people feel like it's going to threaten their jobs or they have other criticisms. So some people are resistant and at times even undermine your efforts to bring the adoption and increase productivity through AI. They might even sabotage the process by saying, hey, it doesn't work where it works, but maybe they give it bad input, show bad results. The people who love AI, no problem. This conversation is more about the people who are skeptical. Now, people who would sabotage, they're in the bottom 1%. It's hard to address them here, but the people who maybe haven't made up their mind yet, are a little skeptical, we can convince them. The anti-AI zealots can't convince these kinds of people. Just can't. You're going to spend a day, a week, a month. They've already made up their mind. So that's a decision or a conversation for a different time. But here, how do you convince just a bunch of people who just haven't really formed a full opinion yet, maybe a little skeptical? You see, it's easy because people want to be more productive. All you have to do is show them examples of other people succeeding and becoming more productive and doing better work in the same tasks they are doing. So you can make example videos of successful use cases and just using it with them, with the tasks that they have at work to show them, to illustrate. Because a picture is like 1,000 words, so you will illustrate, this will really unlock your potential because you want to save time writing? Okay, here it is. You want to get help with better emails? Here it is. It's not replacing you, it's helping you become better, produce better work. And a lot of times when people experience such a productivity and even more quality gain, they're sold. They're sold because they realize, they wanted to have these kinds of results before, but they couldn't, maybe because of lack of experience, lack of skills, lack of something else. But now they can just level up themselves. And that just by itself, when people see to what extent they can level up their current work, how that can be so much better, that to a level that they never thought it might be better. That often is the way to just convince them, by showing them. So a little bit extra care, a little bit more examples, a little bit more just showing them, using it with them with a pre-made, pre-baked example that would be relevant for them, so that they can see, oh, it's relevant, and see how it can be used. A lot of times that just makes all the resistance goes away and turns resistance into eagerness to adopt. So use that to get kind of skeptical, on the fence kind of people who haven't made up their mind to become eager to adopt this technology, because sometimes people just are a little worried about learning new technology, new software. Some people feel like they're not technical, but you'll easily show them that you don't have to be technical to know AI.